I vaguely remember watching Hamtaro as a kid. I'm pretty confident I had this plush right here, but I must have lost it some time ago. Let's take a step back to the beginning of the series. Ritsuko Kawai was born in Osaka, Japan on March 3rd, 1964. Originally, she was illustrating shoujo manga before creating the series Totoko Hamtaro in 1997. It was published in a learning magazine for kids, but as it got more popular, it was released as a small series of books. It's a chill slice of life series about a hamster named Hamtaro, showing small adventures mixed in with tips on how to take care of hamsters. Ritsuko even wrote a song that would eventually become the series' theme song, which we got to hear in the 4-episode OVA series released in 1999. The art style was similar, but still not the same as what we'd come to know internationally. The 4 episodes generally follow the original manga stories. In the year 2000, we got the anime that most people know and love. I watched it a lot as a kid, but according to the Norwegian dub wiki, we only got 26 episodes over here, which is a real shame if that's true. The English dub had more than 100 episodes, and the original Japanese one had almost 300. It begins with the Haruna family moving to a new place, and Hamtaro, who has a shockingly easy time getting out of his cage, explores the world around him, running into the nervous little critter Oxnard. They stumble into the cave of
I'm Boss, the one and only.
And are shown the way to his home, the clubhouse. From here, we're quickly introduced to the other Ham-Hams. There's Bijou, who recently moved in from France. Boss has a huge crush on her, but we find out that Bijou really likes Hamtaro. Bijou is super sweet, and I adore her fashionable ribbons. Then we have Howdy, a fast-talking and self-titled comedian, who most hamsters don't find particularly funny. And Dexter, a sassy little smart guy who loves glasses, since his owner is an optometrist. Howdy and Dexter are rivals, but often act more like an old married couple. They're both interested in someone named Pashmina, but Pashmina doesn't really show much interest in them. She'd rather hang out with Penelope. The two of them are always seen together and looking out for each other. Penelope only says one thing, and is always wearing a blanket. Then we're introduced to Maxwell, a gentle ham with book smarts. He lives in a library, and is always carrying around a hamster-sized book. Panda, who lives with carpenters, and he loves building things. And of course, Sandy, who's a spunky and sporty ham. She's also searching for her long-lost brother Stan, who is eventually found thanks to Hamtaro. Stan is always flirting, but never really gets far, though he's also sporty like Sandy. There's Cappy, who's called that because he always puts stuff on his head, and he really looks up to Boss. And there's Snoozer. He's always sleeping, or at least I think he is, but he's able to talk about events happening around him, and sometimes seems to know things that he shouldn't be able to. I kinda jokingly refer to it as Schrodinger's snooze. You never know if he's awake or asleep or in some strange liminal space between states of being. We also meet ham-hams like Jingle, Elder Ham, Auntie Viv, Pepper, and more. The series focuses on smaller stories, like hamsters helping each other out, or helping out people in trouble. Often their stories revolve around helping Hamtaro's owner Laura with something. But my favorite episodes are generally the more hamster-focused ones. I really love these characters, and I love seeing how creative they get with the situations they're placed in, and watching them build a park together or make a hamster newspaper. It's great stuff. After taking the time to watch most of the English dub, I finally got around to playing the different games. The first game released in the series was Totoko Hamtaro Tomodachi Daisaksen Dechu, developed by Pax Softnica, who would create the first 3 games I'm talking about in this video. But what's also important to note is that all the Game Boy games I'll be talking about were published by Nintendo themselves. Starting up the game, you name yourself, set the date, and then receive Hamtaro as a gift. We have a cage for him that we can check up on. He'll tell us about all kinds of adventures he's going on. While the hamsters in the show aren't able to talk to humans, I love being able to hear what Hamtaro's up to. There's also various books that you can enter friends' names, blood type, birth dates, and such into, and you can do silly things like getting fortunes told or advice. That's kinda all there is to the game. Using the PC is just more stuff similar to the books. There's not a whole lot to do. I was kinda hoping I'd have to take care of Hamtaro, but still, it's a neat game. The cover art is done by Ritsuko Kawai herself. In fact, she would make more cover art for the first few Hamtaro games. Her art style is fantastic, my absolute favorite aesthetic for these characters. Then we got a sequel, or, well, in Japan it's numbered like one, but it's a completely different type of game from the first one. This is the first game we got internationally, and it's called Hamtaro Ham-Hams Unite. It was released on the Game Boy Color, but it was a pretty late release, and the advertisement showed that it was compatible with the Game Boy Advance as well. Starting the game, we see Boss mumbling to himself. He admits he somehow forgot Hamtaro's name, which is just a silly excuse to give us the option of naming our protagonist, but I always just stick with Hamtaro. He says he needs us to go gather up all the ham-hams. He then teaches you how to use ham chat, which is both cool hamster slang, but also actions you can do. Bijou. You gotta fill out the dictionary while going around looking for your friends and solving problems. I really adore how simple the gameplay is. The story was written by Ritsuko Kawai herself. Shigeru Miyamoto was also one of the producers of the game, along with executive producer Satoru Iwata. Nintendo really believed in this series, and it was wildly popular in Japan. Still, it's cool to see two legends of Nintendo work on this game. Exploring is a lot of fun. You have 6 main areas to check out, and you travel between them by digging into the underground tunnel system. You unlock more paths as you go. So we head to the first area. Bijou wants Hamtaro to come find her, and she runs off and hides. We find her chilling behind a tree. I attack Hewitt, and she gets spooked by a spider. From here, we need to apologize to her to make her feel better. So we gotta find out what the Hamchat word for apologize is. And then we go back to her, patch things up, and head back to the clubhouse. The whole game feels like one big puzzle, and solving it is a slow and satisfying process. Figuring out which words and actions to use where and discovering little funny secrets is great. There's a bunch of little side quests and stories to uncover. I think my favorite part is probably Dexter and Howdy's story. Howdy and Dexter are both trying to come up with a cool present for Pashmina. Howdy is looking for a coin, while Dexter is trying to make an ice sculpture. Who you speak to first will change the story, as either Howdy will get stuck in the cash register and Dexter and you have to free him, or Dexter will freeze in the freezer and you and Howdy have to thaw him out. Something we'd never see again, but which I really adored, is this little section of the clubhouse where the Ham-Hams will hang out after they come back home. They have their own little rooms with their picture on their door. You can go visit them and they can also visit each other. There's a good amount of dialogue and little hidden cutscenes to find here. I just like vibing in this area. Snoozer will also be either in his room or in the main area of the clubhouse. You can get hints from either him or Boss on what to do next if you're stuck. There's also a secret underground area where you need a bunch of rocks to get in, and you can make custom dances or listen to music you collect. You can also buy clothes and do dress up, and take photos, which changes the title screen. It's great. It's a simple, cute, charming little game, and it still looks good to this day. I really have no complaints here. It's just a good time. Heartbreak was the next game to come out on the Game Boy Advance. It was once again written by Ritsuko Kawai and continued to have Miyamoto and Iwata as producers. It had the same core gameplay, using Hamchat and all, but it has a bit of a different feel. The plot is about an evil hamster named Spat who goes around breaking up relationships and friendships to make everyone sad, and you gotta go out there and save all the love with the help of Harmony. It's a lot sillier and more out there. Hamtaro first heads out to find Bijou, and they decide to team up to help mend all the broken relationships around town. You fill a love meter as you go on, while also filling in your Hamchat dictionary once again, since water accidentally got spilled on it in the opening. It feels like more of what Ham-Hams Unite did, but just a bit smoother and with those wonderful GBA graphics. In terms of visuals, it's easily my favorite Hamtaro game. The puzzles are mostly more the same, and outside of the main Ham-Hams from the show, a few side characters from the first game make another appearance here too, which is fun, like the shopkeeper guy. It still has the fun and satisfying gameplay loop of exploring and fighting new words, though I did feel it lost something. I know people generally prefer this game over Unite, but I feel like Heartbreak kinda asks a lot from the player to buy into the world you're in, and it feels really disconnected from the show or even the previous game in that regard. Like the amusement park is like an actual amusement park but hamster sized, and they have a control room with buttons and all this wacky stuff. In the show, the group did build a park together, but out of bamboo and twigs and old toys, and it was cool. I love seeing them come up with ways to work around what they have. Making believable attractions in their scale is cool, but Heartbreak just doesn't do that. Another example is later on you get to a haunted house, and I just got super excited to explore it, and then it turns out that instead of exploring the whole house itself, you instead go into this hole here, and you see that it has hamster-sized hallways, elevators, and buttons and key cards you need to progress, and there's a bunch of ghosts and traps and wacky stuff. It's really out there. Of course, there is a lot of good writing and cute moments in this game, but it feels so disconnected from the world around it. There's even robots and a big hamster mech in this game. I know it's a dumb thing to complain about, but there's so many opportunities to be creative with the world they're in. Hamsters making the most out of what they can in a human world. Like how the last game had the bowling place. It's set in a scrapyard, and the hamsters have built the bowling spot out of things they found. They even have hamsters on treadmills to keep the game going. It's so fun. But in this game, you hardly ever feel like you're actually small, and everything you come across almost always feels like it was designed for hamsters and other critters. And I don't know, it took some of the fun out of exploring. There was also some attempts at boss fights in this game, but I felt like they were just annoying. I did not like it. I know I probably sound like I don't like this game, but I really do. I think it's great, and I can completely understand why some people like this the best in the series. I just don't feel that way, sadly. I know most people don't care about stuff like this and just want to enjoy the cute hamsters, and that's totally valid. If you don't mind or even prefer the more outlandish stuff, then that's great. The changes in this game are similar to the shift happening in the anime itself. itself. The first 100 or so episodes which got dubbed into English generally felt pretty grounded. There's something so earnest and endearing about this part of the show. The later 200 episodes never got dubbed, but they got a lot more wacky with it. I feel like Heartbreak is a part in that shift of the franchise, away from the grounded into something a lot more wacky and wild. And while it isn't bad, I just don't vibe with it the same way at all. All the magic and otherworldly aspects that the series would embrace later on just wasn't for me. Anyways, moving on to the next game, Hamtaro Rainbow Rescue, this time developed by Alpha Dream, the makers of the Mario and Luigi series. It was never released in North America, but we did get it in PAL regions. It went in a pretty different direction. The plot is about helping Bo get back home. To do this, he needs items of every color of the rainbow so he can fuel his umbrella to fly home. Instead of focusing on Hamchat words, you instead just press A to interact with things. Actions from the previous games have now become context sensitive. You don't need to choose a specific action, you just do the right one in the right spots. The core gameplay now is about exploring and finding small mini-games or quick-time events to play. Some mini-games can only be played with specific hamsters, and so a lot of the game is about finding the different hamsters who have scattered around town looking for items in certain colors. I like that this game puts more effort into making you feel small. Seeing other larger animals or giant fences, checking out a laboratory, all this stuff adds to the joy of exploring. I just find it really enjoyable to see the world through a different lens, and feeling small is just fun, I don't know. The game manages to maintain that feeling of being one giant puzzle to solve by having you retread old ground with different ham-hams to figure out how to progress. And of course, we still have plenty of fun dialogue and cute characters along the way. The minigames are just fine. They're simple, nothing too special, but mostly not frustrating. There's some fun rhythm games, but overall they just feel like busy work. I just missed the gameplay loop of the previous game, but to be fair, I really don't think they could get away with making a third game where you have to fill out the Hamchat dictionary. I think they had to move on in a different direction, and this game doesn't do a bad job at that. They also let you unlock stickers and backgrounds to put the stickers on, as well as pages for a coloring book, but these aren't bonuses that I'm super interested in. I'd rather play dress up like in the last games. Overall, I like this game just fine. Ham Ham Games is next. This one did release everywhere. Bo is hosting a sports tournament called the Ham Ham Games. Hamtaro with the Ham Ham gang is participating. There's a lot of other wacky characters you're going up against, one of which is Bo's team. In between each day and challenge, you can wander around in small areas and talk to your friends or rivals. But the game is all about the minigames, and overall the minigames are more fun this time around. But unlike the last game, there's little else to do. It's fine. I feel like I just have a lot less to say about it than Rainbow Rescue. It's a solid minigame collection, but it isn't one of my favorites in the series. And that's it for the Game Boy line of games, but we still have the DS ones. Which leads me to something I have to talk about. The shift in art style that the franchise took is something I really don't care for, and it's gonna be very apparent with the DS games, only one of which was localized, Ham Ham Challenge, both of which seem to appeal to a much younger crowd by mostly focusing on little quizzes and puzzles instead of a grand adventure. As you can see, they really shrunk down the bodies a lot and made their heads way bigger, and from a profile view, their mouths just jut out in this kind of weird way. I think it's such a waste to move away from the older art style. Hell, at this point they don't even use Ritsuko's original art style for the covers anymore. But after this, the franchise really just fizzled out. Outside of plushies or the occasional figure, there's not much coming out, even in Japan. In North America, the series did not catch on. It was placed in a pretty rough time slot on Toonami, where it would air before shows kids would consider cooler, like Dragon Ball Z. The creators of Toonami did not want this to be the case. They thought Hamtaro was a great show that needed a fitting time slot for its audience, but they were forced to put it where it was. The series did a lot better in Europe, but still not good enough to continue past the English dub. A few more toys and plushies were shipped over here, as well as the game Rainbow Rescue, but eventually we stopped getting new Hamtaro stuff as well. I'm really glad I got to see it growing up, and I loved it as a kid. I think it's just a wonderful franchise, and while I don't entirely vibe with the direction it would go in, that's just me, I still think it could have stuck around longer. I think seeing a new version of the show would be great. I could imagine it being a hit with both kids of today and the nostalgia-addicted freaks like me who watch it for old time's sake. And that's all I got for you this time. Thanks for watching.